haven't heard of Gof Ugnüt, stated Ambassador Kuchutan Vlad Nostromano of Morocco, you might as well be without a spleen. This statement embodies the principles of Gof Ugnüt. Make music and don't be stingy. Over the past 10 years, no band has accomplished so many astonishing feats as Gof Ugnüt. From the banning of 6 albums in the United States to the loud and lewd concerts that pepper the globe. From the International Fan Club to the outrageous hit videos, this gothic rock powerhouse does it all and makes it hurt. This rockumentary, compiled by myself, Kahi McFly, formerly of MTV, will delve into the super genius creative minds held inside this band, explore the controversies surrounding their success, and show off some of the raunchiest soul to hit this planet since Elvis shook his pelvis. To get to know the 5 main personalities behind the music, I've compiled a thoughtful and concise history of each of the main members before they combined to form what has become possibly the world's most righteous band. Let's start off with the frontman who sings, writes, guitars, and keyboards for the big bad boys, the Reverend Brendan Powell Smith. Brendan was born in 1963 in his hometown of Norwood, Massachusetts, where he spent the first 6 years of his life attending nursery school and a C.M. Callahan grade school. He was just an average kid growing up in the 60s. In 1969, backstage at an Art Garfunkel poetry reading, Brendan's life was forever altered. He met Frog the Frog, his lifetime companion. Brendan earned the nickname Reverend during the 70s when he traveled across the country making speeches against the illnesses of society, such as bell-bottoms. Late in the 70s, the Reverend received a vast video technology education and had brief appearances in many advertisements. In 1980, Smith invested all of his money into his own television program called The Dutch and Paco Show. Although most episodes were considered riotously humorous, it was criticized for its graphic lewdness. The show aired briefly on Canadian television, but long enough to make Smith a sex symbol in most of French-speaking Canada. Later, the 82-83 season was moved to cable, but eventually was banned universally. While attending Norwood High School in 1983, Brendan formed the band Gof Ugnüt with John Field after a dual vision. Brendan served as singer, guitarist, writer, visionary, etc. for the band through its many years of success. And now the man whose dark history would intrigue Freud, whose ability to make music come alive would have Mozart trembling. I refer, of course, to the musical legend Jonathan Field. Jonathan was born in New Zealand in 1963. The son of his own mother, he was enrolled in classical harpsichord lessons at the age of 3. He was the youngest of 11 brothers and sisters. By age 9, he was supporting his family, previously a band of ragtag fugitive paupers, by playing large concert halls throughout New Zealand and Australia. By age 18, in 1973, Jonathan was a world-renowned harpsichordist. At the peak of his success, however, on the way to seeing the concert, John's entire family was run over by a bus. Yes, all 22 siblings, mother and father, were struck outside of the Tasmanian National Concert Hall. John received the news on stage, went completely house, and the harpsichord was trashed, and a few deaths were involved. Recovering from this incident, John spent the next 2 years in reclusive silence in New York City. John emerged in 1975 as Holy Crap, lead guitarist and vocalist for the punk thrash metal disco band Holy Crap and the Birdcage. Ahead of their time, they received critical acclaim, but never made it big commercially. They released an endless string of cult classic albums: Pull It From the Womb, Abuse Your Body with Saran Wrap, Bald Lovers, and The Dance of the Naked Flatman. During a 1976 tour, the band, opening for Paul Bunyan and the Surface Splitters, was arrested by London police after the local concert at which audio problems caused one half of the audience to become deaf and the other half to commit suicide. They were released, however, when it was found that the deadly audio was caused by Elvis. Such antics as sacrificing fans on stage and feeding Spam the baby earned them the title of the most evilest band alive. The holy crap innovation that rocked the guitar world was the introduction of the Beelzebub guitar, which incorporated 666 strings and a bottle opener. Here, in this 1976 interview, we get a peek into the demented genius who was Holy Crap.
Mr. Crap, what do you think about your reputation as the most evil band alive?
Honestly, I don't think we have a reputation as the evilest band alive. I mean, we don't promote any wrongdoing or drugs or alcohol or anything like that. You know, we're rather clean, actually, I would say. We just try to have a fun time with the fans.
Mm-hmm. Well, recently there has been some controversy over your sacrificing your fans on stage. What do you think about this?
Well, Ozzy Osbourne does, he bites off animals' heads, you know, and I've got to keep up with him. People paying a lot of money for the shows, you know, and,
that was just two, wasn't it?
yeah, out of 40,000 people, I mean, you know, just 2 people is no big deal, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, exactly whose womb is being referred to in Pull It From the Womb?
Well, honestly, we're trying to pull it from everybody's womb, you see. It's the womb of the whole world, the spiritual womb, if you will.
It was Jane's womb. Just Jane.
Jane's womb?
No last name, just Jane.
Oh, Jane's womb. Jane's womb.
We hear you had a group of critics for dinner the other night. Were you able to change their rather negative views of your latest album, Abuse Your Body with Saran Wrap?
Well, we didn't have them for dinner. We had them for appetizers. We had the groupies for dinner.
Okay. What exactly was your inspiration for Abuse Your Body with Saran Wrap?
Well, I just like doing it, that's all. Just like abusing my bottle of Saran Wrap.
Mm-hmm. Now, what exactly would you do if I gave you some Saran Wrap right now?
In 1977, however, with the band finally on its way to commercial success, on the way to a Holy Crap in the Bird Turds concert, Jonathan's entire family was again run over by a bus. John, notified of this tragedy while on stage, sadistically massacred the Bird Turd drummer with his Beelzebub guitar, forever losing the amazing invention secrets. John abandoned the Bird Turds and spent the next 5 years in Tibet as a monk. Emerging in 1982, John returned to Norwood High School to eventually form Gof Ugnüt with the Reverend Brennan Powell Smith. After his return from Tibet, John lived an almost exact opposite lifestyle as he did with Holy Crap. Once loud and outspoken, John hardly ever spoke more than a yes or nope in public while with Gof Ugnüt. In the studio, John provided keyboards, vocals, drums, French horn, guitar, pitch pipe, and soul. In concert, John was a spandex-clad force of musical passion. And now, Gorge. Gorge, born George Richmond Carter III, was born in 1963 in Bangor, Maine, where he studied music theory for the first several years of his life. He gave up music in high school, where he and Jason Levesque ran a mob with a tight control over the school. Gorge's life was changed forever one day while passing Reverend Smith's house, where Brendan, John, and Phil were practicing My Greta's Gone. The music convinced him to lead a life of righteousness and apply his music theory teachings to a smashed guitar which he had found outside of Jimi Hendrix's house in 1969. In 1986, Gorge published his musical theory book, which contained the world's most annoying harmonic and many other incomprehensible features. The book boosted his growing personal cult following. Now, the most mysterious of the Gof Ugnüt members, Jason Big Al Q Levesque. Jason Allen Levesque was born somewhere in Canada in 1963 at the age of 6. Little is known of his early life. In 1983, he was attending Norwood High School, where he met Gorge. By their junior year, they had established a powerful mob which completely controlled the school. Outside of school, Levesque spent most of his time using his self-made mega-computer to perform many illegal acts, including sending vast amounts of seditious literature into Eastern European countries. One day, while Big Al Q, this being his mob nickname, and Gorge were being driven past the Reverend Brendan Powell Smith's house, the sounds of Brendan, John, and Phil practicing My Gret Is Gone changed their lives. They vowed to live lives of righteousness and were soon adopted into the band. Actually, only Gorge's life was really changed. It was later revealed that Jason joined the band on a dare. In the band, Big Al Q played a most mysterious yet vital role. He was the only member besides John and Brendan to be on every Gof Ugnüt album. And finally, Philip Grenier, tour drummer, and by far the scariest of the five. Philip Grenier was born in 1963 in the African jungle, his current middle name Ndarko being his true birth name. He moved to the States by himself at a very young age and lived a pleasant childhood in Norwood, Mass, until one day a band of Eastern European political terrorists blew up his house, and he was arrested for computer espionage and several other varied illegal acts involving a computer. Although he owned no computers and had no access to any, he was given 9 life sentences to serve. Due to a quote-unquote computer error, however, he was released in 6 months. These events reversed Phil's psyche and changed him into a rather scary person. At Norwood High School, he was making petty cash, performing hits for the student-run mob. One day, just before he was about to bump off 2 of the school's social outcasts, they asked him to be the drummer in a band called Gof Ugnüt. It was an offer Phil couldn't refuse. In the spring of 1983, John, Brendan, Jason, Phil, and Gorge were each in their junior year at Norwood Senior High School. The school was still under the power of that student-run mob led by Jason and Gorge. John and Brendan were social outcasts, separated from the masses and each other. They practiced music during the hours, only to sit silently together at lunch. Jason and Gorge were plotting to kill the 2 musicians in a nasty assassination. They hired Phil, paying him a small sack of potatoes. As he walked up to the 2 silent musicians at lunch, John and Brendan simultaneously looked at each other and spoke for the first time in years in perfect sync. "I had a vision last night. We must form a huge band called Gof Ugnüt." They both turned to Phil and said, "Want to be our drummer?" Phil put away the gun and smiled. The songs My Gret Is Gone, Cactus Rock, Ralph, and Etwa Gubbet Ease Guy Akafi were written. One day, while Jason and Gorge's limo was passing Brennan's house, where John, Brendan, and Phil were practicing My Gret Is Gone, Gorge and Jason were awestruck and repented to lead a life of righteousness. Not only did they repent, they joined the band. After a year of organizing things, the 5 decided to make a demo tape. Upon arriving at the amateur studio set up in Gorge's cellar, Jason gave the other members the news that Phil had just been sent to jail for blowing up a bridge just to see what it was like. Instead of saying, "Forget the band, it's over," they used the energy from the shock of this news to record My Gret Is Gone and a spontaneously created song, Carmen. 2 more tracks, a re-recording of Grud and the Gof Ugnüt Blues, recorded inside Gorge's church, made the demo tape complete. The tape enjoyed widespread distribution at Norwood High School and made Gof Ugnüt local celebrities. About 30 copies were given to other students to take on vacations or any type of travel to other states, countries, and continents. However, there were no reported successes outside of Norwood. Because of this lack of popularity outside their hometown, the band had no inspiration to go on. They remained close friends, but the members gave up almost all hope of continuing the band. Then, as Gorge, Brendan, and John were playing 3-way card war at the local Mug and Muffin, Jason burst in, proclaiming the news. Gof Ugnüt is on the Billboard charts in 63 countries. The band was instantly and completely revitalized. This was the first time they did the now famous Gof Ugnüt hand symbol in a circle. When My Greta's Gone hit #1 in Canada, the band attracted the attention of Beinadopter Recordings. The problem was, the band was famous, yet no one knew who they were. This first breakthrough single started the cult following the band still enjoys. Of course, now it's on a much larger scale across the globe, except, ironically, in the United States. Beinadopter sent out scouts across the states and finally located the band playing a gig at the Norwood Summerfest celebration. Into the studios they went and emerged 9 minutes later with the debut album, Will You Be Our Friend? This 45-minute collection made a deep gouge in the fabric of modern music and hit #1 9 minutes after its release in 63 countries. From day one, they were #1. The album spawned the large hits, The Sporky Tree, We're Friends, Lend Me Some Money, and the life-changing ultra-big People of a Feather, and of course, Banoofs. They then embarked on a world tour which plowed through Canada, South America, and into Antarctica. Tragedy struck, however, while at the Ross Ice Shelf. During a stellar performance, an avalanche completely engulfed the stage in snow and ice. Presumed dead, worldwide fans grieved the loss of the quintessential five. The band, however, miraculously escaped 9 days later, not only unhurt, but with a new album, Total Abuse. This new audio odyssey reflected the band's experiences on the road and had generally a more kick-butt groove to it. The tour was changed to the Friendly Abuse Tour and rampaged through Australia, Asia, Africa, and Europe. It ended with a final 6-hour performance at the high school where it all began on December 30th, 1986. Now, generally considered musical superstars, the band dealt with the prices of fame. The Reverend Smith enjoyed being plastered on the cover of 36 magazines in 2 years, but was heavily criticized for his selling out, appearing in ads for Yoo-Hoo and Spam Luncheon Meat. Interviewers became increasingly frustrated with Jonathan Field's reticence in their interviews. Gorge used his time off to write a book on music theory, which was criticized mainly because no one could comprehend it. Through most of 1987, Mr. Levesque could not be located. And Phil, well, he was sentenced to 15 years for several crimes too scary to mention. The critics were silenced, however, when in September of 1987, the album Free Jesus Monopoly was released. The future of world music, the 9 grooviest tracks of the 80s, and Pretty Fucking Good were just a few of the quotes from notable politicians of the time on the album. The music was more complex, the lyrics deeper than a really deep hole. This time around, Gof Ugnüt played a more limited tour in theaters in Quebec, Reykjavik, Paris, Leningrad, Rome, Rabat, Brasilia, Sydney, and a few others. The concerts were smaller, but the energy increased tenfold. Most thought the band would burn out on tour, but they kept it together through mid-88. It was after this tour, however, that another tragedy struck the band. On his way home from a party celebrating the end of the tour, a crazed man with a humongous automatic machine gun and a video camera attacked Gorge. This video was seen across the globe after the assassin was captured, claiming, "The harmonic! I did it because of the harmonic." Rushed to the hospital, doctors proclaimed that, had he not wrapped his entire upper body in fruit roll-ups at the party, he certainly would not have survived. Physically, Gorge was unscathed, but mentally, the shock had great effects. The rest of the band spent the remainder of 1988 and most of 1989 on other projects. Smith introduced a fashion line and opened several outlets in Europe. John spent most of his time pumping it up in his in-house gym. Jason attempted to use his profits from Gof Ugnüt to purchase Australia. The deal fell through, however, when Levesque once again disappeared. Phil went back to the can, this time for quote-unquote accidentally holding 72 people hostage on top of the Sears Tower. This time, Phil stayed in until mid-1991. After not seeing each other for nearly 6 months, the band was reunited at a Christmas party on the 8th of December. The band immediately decided to go home and write some Christmas tunes for a new album. To get that classic sound, they met in Gorge's basement on the 9th and 10th and recorded 9 tracks for A Gof Ugnüt Christmas, released on the 14th. It was the first album released in the US for Gof Ugnüt, but still only had minor popularity. The rest of the world's holiday season, however, was made a little more merry by the new tunes. In fact, in most countries, the new album sold heavily through winter, spring, and into summer. The band, feeling a bit nostalgic, performed a door-to-door tour of friends and family houses during the rest of December. It was a great deal of fun for the band, with the exclusion of one argument between John and Gorge, which left Gorge with a keyboard injury over his left eye. Work on the next album began right away. After the recording of the song Ride the Bus in January, tension between John and Gorge peaked, resulting in Gorge's leaving of the band. The Reverend Smith and Big Al Q were ready to go on the new album. John, however, with Gorge's leaving, was emotionally distressed. John left for 3 months to the Congo, while Smith and Q continued writing for the album. In the Congo, John met Ifne Mutombo, a Congo chief who taught John many things. Worldwide, rumors of Gof Ugnüt's being all over were reported. Then, in April, John returned inspired, and the remaining 3 recorded the ultra-symbolic album What the Hell, featuring many of their largest hits, Set Yourself Free, Kathleen, Boinkia, Doomsday Boogie, and Ride the Bus, which remains one of the most successful videos in the world. The follow-up tour was their largest ever. Millions of fans poured out across the globe. In Paris, Smith met Kathleen Holmesy, his petite amie from there on out. Phil was released just before the first concert, and Gorge and John reconciled and were in their primes throughout the tour. John was as nasty as ever in spandex. Reverend Smith was arrested 326 times for his on-stage antics, mostly for lewdness and jaywalking. And Big Al Q impressed the masses with his pioneering and mastering of the electric kazoo. Following the tour, Phil went to prison once more for using obese men as drums. And the rest of the band announced that the band would not be touring again. It was during this time I had the privilege of interviewing several of the band members for MTV. Let's take another look at the band through their own eyes. We start with Smith. His popularity and presence have only been preceded by his raw talent. Some have said he's a sex symbol of the 90s. Some say he's James Brown's lost brother. Some say he's a faggot loser. But we all know him as the Reverend Brendan Powell Smith.
Reverend Brendan Powell Smith I first saw, I remember, in a crowd of about 30 to 40 women.
We go way back. He's this preacher of all sorts, a preacher of plaid.
Reverend Smith.
Man, that guy always had a chick. Or a stud.
He is the most neato-groovy kind of guy I know.
An extremely original and opulent individual.
The Reverend Brendan Powell Smith. Yes.
This is Kahee McFly for MTV. We're here in the Smith household in Norwood, Massachusetts, interviewing the Reverend Brendan Powell Smith of Gof Ugnüt. Reverend Smith, throughout the history of Gof Ugnüt, as you know, there have been a plethora of rumors and quote-unquote inside stories on what goes on back at the hotel after a concert on the road. Many involve scads of women and kitchen appliances. Care to comment?
The answer is, it's not true. I mean, you know, everyone knows, I'm faithful to my one and only sweetheart, Kathleen.
Could you then explain this photograph of hordes of naked women in line outside of your hotel room at the Hilton in Copenhagen?
One word. Frog the Frog. They were there to see the frog. You know, autographs and stuff.
Now, Reverend, who's this on People's Magazine's Sexiest Man of the Year? What about the thousands of fan mail letters from teenaged, middle-aged, and older women from across the globe?
It all seems kind of ridiculous to me. I mean, I can't really understand it. Not at all. In high school, I could hardly get a date. But now...
How about the clothes? Since the first day you marched onto the stage wearing clashing plaids, multiple suspenders and ties, the face of international fashion has taken an undeniable turn for the weird.
It started in my early youth. I was always fascinated with plaids. I mean, think of the people who sit down and design plaid things. I mean, what are they thinking? And I used to say, hey, Friday is tie day. But on the road with Gof Ugnüt, every day is tie day.
Who are your inspirations musically?
Inspirations. Well, Ringo Starr, Julio Iglesias, Richard Starkey, Roger Ebert, Yoda, Guy Smiley, Santa Claus, Gary Coleman, and little Tip O'Neill, too.
Is it true that you've been arrested 326 times for your antics on stage, mostly for lewdness and jaywalking?
Well, Kahim, we gotta face facts. I mean, the truth is, in most countries, unfortunately, nudeness is lewdness. And about the jaywalking, well, let's leave the legal matters to my attorney.
How'd you meet the frog?
Frog and I go way back, Kahim. We met at an archographical poetry reading backstage in, about 68, 69? The frog is the soul behind Gof Ugnüt. I mean, he's probably more talented than the rest of us put together.
Many say he was Gof Ugnüt. John Field's intense musical talent led the band to massive world success right up to the tragedy in 1991. Although he hardly spoke to those outside of the band, this 1990 segment reveals John's powerful vulnerability.
John Field. You know, when I think back to the first time I ever met John Field,
it's like two people splitting a bill on a date. He always meets you halfway, and then goes one step farther.
the image I get is toaster ovens, electrical appliances, Twinkies, Ding Dongs, cupcakes.
The man's a genius. I don't think he ever spoke to me, though. Guy could do anything with keyboards. He's fabulous. It's bad about it as kids, though.
Everything in the world that's neat. 14,000 things to be happy about. John Field's got them all, and he's got them to live for.
Musically, John is like a hippopotamus, squared. He's like adding apples and oranges. His music is uncompromisingly keen. Socially, well, that's a horse of a different color.
But he's got it. Whatever it is, he's got it. And it probably isn't catchy. But if it was catchy, I'd want to catch it because he's the man with the toaster ovens.
Kahim McFly on Jungle Safari for MTV News. We're in New Zealand at the Field household interviewing the spiritual leader of Gof Ugnüt, John Field. John, you're obviously a reserved individual in everyday life. This strongly contrasts with your stage comments.
Yes.
Aha. You certainly are on the road a lot with the guys. Do you ever get worn out? What's it like?
No.
You are an integral part of the Gof Ugnüt stage and studio image. What type of effort goes into this? Your musical style is instantly recognizable. Who is your main influence? Some say Edward Van Halen, some say Kenny Rogers.
Uh-huh.
Are you catatonic or something?
No.
Gorge. That name inspires fear in the likes of Yngwie Malmsteen, Joe Satriani, Edward Van Halen, and Ted Nugent. No one can touch his amazing guitar ability. He allegedly wears out a guitar in 6 hours of playing. His rich and creamy tone has been described as ideally thick, great salad dressing, and lame. Although his history with the band hasn't exactly been smooth sailing, he's considered by most to be a member of the quintessential.
Honestly, I personally have never understood a complete sentence he said. When he was with us, we had this sound. Well, you know, you've heard it.
George Richmond Carter III. Now, everyone knows that he's an awesome guitar player, but few people know that he's also a master of the pan flute.
Gorge. Yes.
Gorge.
He's the greatest guy I know with the guitar, but the pan flute, he just kicks all butt.
Kahim McFly, MTV News. We're here at Vine Adopta Studios with Gorge, the quintessential third leg of Gof Ugnüt. The band is working on their next album entitled Feeling Smarmy. Gorge, hello, good to see you. How's it going?
Ça va, I tell you. Once upon a time, a Frenchman pranced upon one foot.
I see. Now, Gorge, one of your largest personal accomplishments has been your musical theory book, published in 1986. Could you explain the basic philosophy?
It's the secret I may reveal to you. But tell me, am I revealing it to you, or you, collective, the audience watching? I must know who hears the tonal phrases I emit.
The audience.
Much better, thank you. Once there lived an E-flat transfixed Dorian scale. It remained in a mode of my node in the earlier days of my existence, until puberty, to be exact.
Yes, I see. Tell us about the new album.
I'm not finished. At this point in my life, it welled up within my soul. It first came to me in the form of a female deer that I affectionately named Doe. Once I had some dough, I went out to get some rays, which were very important to me in those faraway days. So, this done, I went out and I screamed, "La!" at the top of my lungs. Not the bottom of my lungs, but the top of my lungs. To ease my throat pains, I drank a rasher of tea. Tea? What? Tea. And this brought me back to Doe. My dear, my female deer. Doe. That's all you need. A base to meet your essential needs.
Right. So, how's your sex life?
Gorgeous.
Now, this may be a rough topic. Could you tell us what happened when you left the band in early 1990?
The staccato between myself and the band, which at this juncture was enjoying an accelerando of popularity, was much like a harmonic forzando. The intonation of the crescendo did not accent the transposure of Jonathan and myself with a mezzo forte of legato. However, the fermata has been brief. I now consider Jonathan to be my bidextrous amigo.
Is it true that you soloed through 6 straight concerts during this past tour?
It is as true as life.
Could you tell us what's in the future for Gof Ugnüt?
A Lithuanian prancing upon one foot.
Being the man who inspired the suicide of 136 people is no easy task, but Big LQ handles it just fine. He can't sing, he can't write, but no one will contest that he is the best electric kazooist, if not the only electric kazooist in history. Hardly ever seen in public, Mr. Levesque is not easily sat down for an interview.
Jason, not many people know why we call him the Q. Because you get that handle on the Q and you can just, Who?
Oh, right, Jason. Well, he was always, good. I don't know where we'd be without him. I don't know where he'd be without us. I don't know where he is.
Jason? Yes.
Who?
Kahee McFly, MTV News. We're here in the Levesque household in Norwood, Massachusetts, interviewing the normally reclusive Jason A. Levesque, a spurious member of the band Gof Ugnüt. Jason, hello. Good to see you. I'd like to start off by asking a question that I'm sure many of your fans are interested in knowing the answer to. Jason, what exactly is it you do for the band?
Well, that's a question that I can easily answer using a very apt metaphor. Now, of course, you all have VCRs, and you have those VCR cassettes. Yes. Now, when you pop one of those babies open, about 1 billion pieces fly out all over the place. And no matter what you do, I mean, if you don't put those pieces in there, the VCR tape won't work. And I think that's the key there, because, from the outside, I mean, you're not a VCR maintenance kind of person. You don't know what those parts do, but they're vitally important. And I think that's the key to understanding exactly what my role is in Gof Ugnüt.
I see. Okay. Have you ever had a tan?
Have you ever had a tan? I believe... No, that was skin poisoning, sorry. I guess the answer's no.
Yes. Jason, you are the master of the electric kazoo. Could you tell us a little bit about the history of that instrument and how you grew to be such a connoisseur?
Actually, I think my fascination with the kazoo started at an early age when my asthma inhaler broke and it made a whistling sound. From there, I moved on to try and experiment with different things. Straws, empty toilet paper tubes. And in fact, I was searching for a certain sound. I didn't know what it was. I kept experimenting and trying until one day, out of the bottom of a cereal box, I got a kazoo. Which, by the way, was remarkably similar to my prototypes. And I was considered copyright infringement, but it just wasn't in the cards at the time. From there on, learning that Jimi Hendrix had played the kazoo, I looked to him as a role model. And also the two Free Stooges. And from there on, I just became a constant fascination. I practiced day and night, and got to the current level of proficiency and worldwide renown that I'm at today.
Now, if it's not too personal, Jason, could you tell us about some of your past relationships with women?
No problem. I'd be glad to share my stories and experiences with you. It just brings me back to... Oh my gosh, look! It's a rare red-breasted wild herring! Look!
What? Where? What? What? Hey! Huh?
If Gof Ugnüt is too normal for you, if they're a little too clean-cut, well, there's Phil and Darko Grenier.
Well, Phil Grenier, he's really not that bad of a guy. I mean, a lot of the stuff in his early career, that wasn't really his fault. I mean, I can't tell you exactly how I know this, but it really wasn't his fault. As for what happened after that, I think the guy just got a few bad breaks. And after that, it went downhill.
Phil's tried to kill me many times, but he's never succeeded. But I'll always love him in his violent ways.
Yikes! Phil. No.
We're now entering the Copenhagen Institute for Nefarious Drummers, where Phil, Nagumba, and Darko is being held. Phil, the first time you were arrested for first-degree murder, what actually happened?
Well, I didn't do it. It was an accident. He fell. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You were sent to prison for 13 years, and then you went to drum for Gof Ugnüt. In '85, you were jailed again. What happened this time?
Well, I was arrested for a nun beating while passing through Utah. But I'm completely rehabilitated now.
Re-released in '86, you toured with the band on the Friendly Tour '86. Could you tell us what was the story behind your prison term in Antarctica during that leg of the tour?
The bloody insecurity of penguin flying. Of course I did it, but I'm completely rehabilitated now.
Originally from the Congo in Africa, was this the foundation of your drumming style today?
Well, yes, see, I took theater Congo tracks and taught me and formed my unique method of percussion.
Which is?
Rock, African melted, polka fusion, fusion.
Right. One last question. Not to harp on the issue, but I'm sure the viewers would like to know why you were arrested again in 1991.
Oh, that, yes. They see I stole a little bus and accidentally ran over a family, but it wasn't my fault. I didn't tell them to walk up in front of me. And besides, I'm completely rehabilitated now and I'm feeling just fine. Just fine.
Keith McFly, MTV News.
Following the tour in 1991, John, the Reverend, Jason, and Gorge spent 3 months visiting the world's most beautiful places, in disguise, of course, to avoid the crowds. Upon returning to Bynadopta Studios, the band was feeling pretty smarmy. This was made obvious by the following and final true album, Feeling Smarmy. The last song on the album, however, contains the answer to what happened to Gof Ugnüt. While the song was being recorded, John received news that his family had once again been run over by a bus. John destroyed much equipment in his angered rage, then disappeared for almost a year. Without the soul power of Jonathan, the band couldn't go on. 2 years later, Bynadopta, with the band's approval, released Gof Ugnüt's largest hits, which also contained a few re-recordings of previous hits, along with many other classic re-recordings of past albums. It was released in January of 1993. A few months later, Bynadopta, using the argument that Gof Ugnüt had a contract for 3 albums after What the Hell, attempted to release a collection of cover tunes the band had recorded for fun through the years. Outraged because Gof Ugnüt vowed never to release covered material, the band and Bynadopta went to court. After several long court sessions, the charges of breach of contract were placed upon Phil, who again went to jail. And the album was released. Although resented by the band, this album too became a worldwide success. What became of these 5 men who rocked the musical world, who influenced the lives of millions of fans across the globe? Well, Phil is, of course, currently imprisoned. John Field became a school bus driver in 1992 and once saved an entire busload of first-grade students by jumping into a nuclear reactor. A few weeks later, John was found dead in an Olympic-sized swimming pool of his own vomit. With the breakup of the band, Smith could never match the musical quality found in Gof Ugnüt. He's currently making sappy love songs with Julio Iglesias and Engelbert Humperdinck. Soon after the release of Feeling Smarmy, Levesque disappeared and was never heard from again. There were many sightings around the globe, but never any proof of identification. There is, however, an uncanny resemblance between the current Prime Minister of Canada and Mr. Levesque. In 1993, after the death of Jonathan, Gorge released his first solo album, Gorge Plays With Himself, which he nostalgically dedicated to John. Gorge is currently enjoying moderate success with his Gorge Tours With Himself tour. His cult lives on. To millions of fans scattered across the globe, Gof Ugnüt was not just another great rock band. They were idols, and their music was what they lived by. Only time will tell if Gof Ugnüt will go down with the ranks of Mozart, Beethoven, the Beatles, the Stones, James Brown, Michael Jackson, and Duran Duran. I believe their music will pass the test of time. I leave you with shots of the band's inspirations, their supporters, their worldwide fans. I hope you enjoyed this documentary as much as you should have. I'm Kahim McFly saying, keep it smarmy and don't be stingy. Johnny, Gof Ugnüt, wow.
Oh, j'adore Gof Ugnüt. C'est super, c'est la chose la plus fantastique, c'est le groupe de rock incroyable. J'adore Gof Ugnüt and best band in the whole world. They're really huge in England. I like them, I listen to them every day, all day long.
Ja, genau, hier ist die Gof Ugnüt.
Well, I Gof Ugnüt.
Ora sti dottori adat Gof Ugnüt.
C'è Gof Ugnüt a Tirolien.
Ja, Gof Ugnüt, ja. Gof Ugnüt and best band in the whole world. They're really huge in England. I like them, I listen to them every day, all day long.
There's this girl I know, she's my Venus, my goddess of love. Sometimes when I feel low, I see her smile and it puts me above. Now she ain't nothing special, and my friends will all swear to that. Yeah, but she's my girl, I call her name, and that's where it's at. Kathleen, I wanna be inside. Kathleen, I wanna take her a ride. Kathleen, all cares aside, now you may think it's me, but I just wanna split her scene. Kathleen, so I get up the guts, I'm gonna tell her, I'm gonna ask her out. Now I can't be a klutz, so I confront her without a doubt. But my mind goes blank, I can't think to say anything. So I flash on a thought, and I start to sing. Kathleen, I wanna be inside you, Kathleen. I wanna ride you, Kathleen. Don't let care subside you. Now some may think it's mean, but I wanna split your scene. Kathleen. But I just want to split her scene. Kathleen. So she thinks for a while, thinks about me, thinks about us.